Great. I'd like to call the Finance, Audit, Tendering, and Administration Committee meeting of April 2nd, 2025 to order. Order of business, number one is call to order. Declarations, number two, declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any?
None.
Seeing none, thank you. Number three, approval of agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Councilor Bernard, seconded by Mayor Brown, thank you. Number four, approval of previous draft minutes of the March 21st, 2025 meeting of this committee. Is motion by Councilor Bernard, seconded by Mayor Brown. Thank you. Approval of draft minutes. Going to number five. Business arising from those minutes. Is there any business arising from those minutes?
None here.
None here. Okay, thank you. You're moving right along. Number six, discussions, reports. We have 6A to F. Starting with 6A, report ES 2513 spring tree order. Request for quotes. Simon Wilmot is here from Environment and Sustainability to speak to this RFQ. Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we had two requests for quotes were issued in February for trees for our annual spring tree order, which is a capital budget expense, and trees for our Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies project, which is funded by the FCM and the city. 5 submissions were received. Scoring for the bids was based on 3 criteria identified in the RFQ. An order fulfillment score, which was calculated based on submissions looking at the species and the size specifications at the lowest costs, including transportation, and a sustainability score based on the statements submitted by each of the businesses. For the street and park trees, we are recommending that Cool Breeze Farms be awarded the tender at $44,892,000. And for our spring natural area restoration, that's the FCM project, we're recommending that Dutch Master Nurseries Limited be given the tender at $39,331 plus taxes. Happy to take any questions about it.
Mayor Brown?
So I don't know if you're on the same document, Simon, we're on page 8. Prices that come in from the tender? 6. Well, it's 8 here, mine.
Yeah, 8 is
the digital copy.
Yeah, 8 is the request for quotations.
So I didn't read all the background, but you have Cool Breeze at $44,892. Dutch Master Nurseries at $37. And then you have Durand's at $39. So if I go through your rationale, is it the quality of product coming from Cool Breeze that we're going with?
No, there's a number of, are you talking about the tender? Sorry, I don't have that report, so I can't see the specific one. Yes, this one, you have to factor in the shipping costs and the total are, you add them together. That total doesn't include the shipping costs. For example, Cool Breeze Farms includes the shipping cost in their price per tree, whereas Dutch Master separates it out. So Dutch Master total is in fact, what was it, 42,000 and something, or the $42,250. So the differentiating factor, they were very close this year. I have to say that we have a very structured way we're looking at these quotes now, because we get variants in their species that are being provided. So we might ask for a red maple and we get offered a Freemanny maple, which is a cross between red and silver maple. So we don't always get exactly what we're being asked for, and we get different sizes as well. So we might ask for a 10-gallon pot and we get offered a 20-gallon pot and we don't want that. Or we get offered much bigger or much smaller. So we have to look at all the different elements to it and score them for each of those criteria. Otherwise, you end up comparing apples and oranges. We have to figure out a way to do that. The other thing is that not all companies are able to provide everything that we ask for. So obviously, if you only provide 90% of their stuff and another company provides 100%, then 90% is going to be cheaper, but they're not giving us what we do. So we have to look at the quantity, species, the sizes, and the cost to be able to give us a scores to compare between them. It's a very big spreadsheet.
And if I look at the second tender for Dutch Master at 90.6, 6 points out of 100, and Kirby's at 89.3.
Yeah.
With a price difference of almost 6,000.
Yes.
You know, I know that the province has that factor in there that if it's within, maybe Lane or Dan know that there's that factor of 10% within the price of a provincial company.
There is something there.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't have that. Hopefully that we'll be looking at as a, you know, when we put together our procurement policy. Because it's Dutch Master Nurseries are out of
St. Catherine's.
St. Catharines, Ontario.
Yeah.
We've had them before. Okay, thank you.
Again, just to clarify, Simon, on the School Breeze, on the streets and parks.
Yeah.
It's 44,892. The Dutch Master is 42,250. So that's $2,600 less. But you're saying is there a freight piece that's not included?
No, that's the actual total, including freight for that one. The report has the total cost. It's the what do we call it? It's the bid sheet that has it divided up differently.
On page 8.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So Simon, is it around 500 trees we're looking at here?
A lot
Or
more.
22 and 156?
It's 150, I think, street and park trees. I can't remember how many it is for the FCM order.
422.
422, thank you very much.
Yeah, 422 and 156,
Yeah.
so try 500. So, what's the delivery time, you know?
We ask, we're hopeful to get them in May. Once we've got, they can't predict for sure delivery until we give them a purchase order and commit to the cost. So we have to go through full council first of all, and once we've got that purchase order, they'll commit to it. But it's normally pretty good. They're normally able to get them here for May. We're a little bit late this year just because of the timing of committee meetings. But
Yeah, so you only have that window of May basically to plant, right? Possibly June, depending on the weather, and then you're into the fall.
exactly, it's May and we plant all the way through sort of end of May, all the way through June. Sometimes we spill into July, but ideally we want to be doing as much as we possibly can in that May and early June period.
And so does it look like the trees will be here in time?
I'm hopeful.
No, it's the reason I bring it up is there's some discussion over when we pass our capital budget in the future, and I mean, you know, this is one of the things I guess we can't pass it at the end of March and hope to hit the trees in 2 months, so. Okay. Is there any other orders going in, or is this for the year?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we certainly have other orders, but not that exceed the $25,000 dollar amount. We do have some. We do. Because of the nature of the way that we do our plantings, we like to bring in some native genetics into local genetics in. So we do have a separate order for trees grown on PEI from local seed sources, and those that are able to have been grown here, so they're adapted to our climatic conditions. And then we have a separate shrub order as well. So we have lots of additional orders, but these are the biggest orders.
So where are the majority of them going?
Majority of the trees.
Where's the majority of planting?
So the street and park trees are all over the city. That's a
I know we set up a canopy inventory before, so we fall in that canopy inventory and what was lost during Fiona.
Certainly, and there's a degree of planning is based on opportunity. So where we have the capacity to plant, and also efficiencies, like it's better for us to move 6 trees to one location than move 6 trees to 6 locations. So we try to cluster them a little bit in that plan. The FCM trees, the FCM fund is for us to plant Windsor Park, Hermitage Creek, Andrews Pond, and
So that's okay, they're in parks and playgrounds and.
Natural area restoration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I just put a pause in the meeting? Deputy Mayor Yankoff is having difficulty with her sound on her remote call, so we're just trying to get that,
We're rebooting the laptop to see if that helps right now.
Okay.
And if not, we'll.
so
go on
you
to
can
the
let
next
me
step.
know when we're good to continue?
Yes,
Should I
absolutely.
just go to closed session for now, or?
Is there a closed session?
No,
No.
just to stop the live stream.
Just hold off, I don't think we need to.
Okay. It shouldn't take too long to restart, so.
Okay.
Oh, man, I can only hear muffins.
I'll try and articulate more.
Well, we're waiting, and when we get to,
She could hear me at the beginning,
Yeah,
so
that's-
I'm not sure what happened.
It might just be
grants,
So she could only hear me.
Yeah.
grants and the
Isn't much
process,
help.
you guys have a presentation, I
Is she
noticed.
on phone or Teams?
She's on Teams, but the laptop's
No.
restarting right now, so she's not there at the moment, just cause we're
Right.
This
restarting.
speaks to the suggested path,
Good,
but there's no actual
I'll ask her to
presentation
hang
yet.
up and rejoin.
we don't make a recommendation to council?
Oh, absolutely, but that'll be at your next finance committee meeting before April 22nd.
Okay, the reason I ask, because I've looked at some of the economic development request.
Mhm.
I think there's one still in there from NCAA basketball,
Possibly.
$125,000. Do we know about that?
We'll be bringing all of the grants to council for conversation on,
We'll be discussing that before at this committee
yes,
first.
absolutely. There's a report in your package
Yeah,
today
no,
that
I-
speaks to the actual path calendar-wise.
So what we passed in the budget was 3 million something, what was it,
Which,
for grants?
I
They're
think
in different
there's a total of
categories.
7.2, I think, in there, in
Uh-huh.
various different, there's 7.2 in
Right, but
various
they're in
different.
different areas.
That
planning,
includes
different-
East Link and
Right.
Belleville.
So that's all been approved for this budget.
Yeah, the total amounts have been approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have to make some, if we can,
We can rearrange the deck chairs a bit.
if we look at some of them and look, we're not going with it.
Right.
That can go into the surplus.
And there was none of the individual, other than the contractual amounts, none of the individual nonprofits were mentioned in the budget document, so.
Right. Right. No, the one I'm concerned about is what we did last year with NCAA,
Right.
I think there's still one in there for this year.
It was offered up as one of the savings that we didn't,
Was it accounted for in the budget as?
no, because we didn't pursue that, so there is some, potentially some room to make up there.
We parked all of the grants, your worship, at request of council,
No, we parked them, but in terms of the total,
yes.
that's what in the budget. Right?
Yes.
Kind of as a placeholder until we
Yeah,
right.
had a
You're
chance to
talking
go through.
400,000.
There's
No,
400,000, then if you go down to economic development,
Talking about 7 million.
Well, there was a number of an economic development we already cut as part of our cuts,
Yeah,
budget.
the one his worship is talking about was one that was
NCAA.
offered up by
Basketball.
ACTIV as
We
a,
cut 25,000 from it.
we're going ahead with that?
It was
NCAA?
125 and we said 100, we already cut 25 out.
Is Alana back, is the deputy back on with
We're
us?
still trying.
Okay.
I think there was
I don't wanna
there was
be-
another 25 that
We're
Laura
bringing up Americans.
identified that we didn't take her up on.
Another what?
Another 25 for the NCAA, the basketball NCAA
Are you
tournament.
still live here?
So you're saying we put it down to
We're still
75?
live.
We're still live,
We
folks.
didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys know we're still live here,
Yep,
right?
that's all.
Okay.
So she can't get in
She's hearing muffled sounds.
We're just rebooting the Teams meeting to
or?
try.
It's like you, John, down in South Carolina, no data.
I'm running out of power. I'm away from on my phone, cell phone. Close the power.
South Carolina, huh? International hub of the world, and you couldn't get data.
Well, we have quorum here, right?
You do.
That's what I was thinking.
Carry on, folks.
Yeah, but just
I mean,
respect to the
Discussion until.
the deputy,
What's that?
respect for the deputy.
Why she can't hear?
No. Says muffled.
She can't hear anything right now. She's off right now.
Yeah, Teams isn't even, like the meeting isn't even running at the moment. We're just trying to figure out why it's not picking up. I say we, Chris is doing all the work.
Nancy, can we just mute the live stream?
Well,
Can we turn the?
I would
the
keep
audio
going, because we got other people online that are able to hear. and
Who else is
listen.
on the
Can we
line?
mute it, Chris?
Gary?
No, the deputy's the only one
Who's
on.
the, who else?
maybe another minute here and then otherwise we'll continue on. We have quorum, so,
Yeah, for some reason, the click share isn't passing through the
Do you wanna, do
camera properly.
you wanna try to join her from here?
Do we wanna try a different laptop?
Yeah, we
Will
can
that-
try another laptop.
Okay.
okay, gonna continue on. Okay, have we, Simon, committee, have we done with the tender here on the, in the committee?
Yeah, I think I'm good with it.
Move that
I
along.
think what Councillor Bernard said, that the priority should be, and Simon knows, is to bring on those trees for the streets and parks. That would be priority number one. And then building those canopies under the natural area restoration tree order. They can come in as we move along the season, correct?
Sorry.
Are you trying to get both of them in at the same time to?
Yes.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've been given this money from the FCM, we have a schedule to keep, in terms of, planting for it, and we want to front end load it just in case anything goes, wrong in the latter half of it, so, we're trying to get as many trees in this spring as we can. It's a 3-year, program, so the more trees we can plant in the first spring and the first year, the more room we have to maneuver, in the second and third year.
Okay, thank you. All right,
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bernard, thank you, that,
Green light.
So it now just goes to council from
Council.
here, or does it go back to as far as
No,
we have?
please, it goes to council.
That would be appreciated, thank you very
Okay,
much, we'd like to buy the trees.
Trying to cut down on our mileage claim.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
thank you, Simon.
Cut down the red tape. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So, 6B is the report on Public Works procurement of half-ton 4x4 crew cab trucks. Paul Zonkin, acting manager. I know I missed that meeting on March 26th, but I viewed the committee meeting last night, so anyway. Somewhat familiar with this item, just background on it, so here we go. Paul, do you wanna
Thank
start
you.
us off?
Thank you very much, Chair, Committee.
I just have one quick question, Paul, before you start. I know this is Parks, Rec, Fire, Water and Sewer, but in the notes it said we're gonna talk with 13 trucks today and another 3 were coming in later under Water and Sewer, or are we talking about all 16, Paul?
this will be about 13 vehicles
Just the 13, so, but all 16 were ordered in one bulk?
in part of a process of 16. I'll quickly get to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Chair Committee, for pure clarity and made me lose my train of thought, Councillor Bernard. For pure transparency, I'll try to quickly go through a little bit of a meandering process.
Oh, take your time.
The utility had a tender out for 3 vehicles. Public Works recognized that we were going to be trying to procure 13 vehicles of almost exact similar nature for Public Works. And then we also, Public Works coordinates that for fire and recreation. So what occurred was that the tender for 3 vehicles for the water and sewer utility was amended and the closing date extended to create a tender for 16 vehicles. Not only the number of units was part of the addendum, but there was also slight changes in the seat covering and floor coverings and other minor little things. And a new bid sheet indicating 16 vehicles and the new specifications was in that addendum. Come close, there was 3 submissions, but 2 of them did not recognize the addendum, and it's abundantly clear that they did not see that. And the one submission from Summerside Chrysler Dodge did recognize the addendum and did indicate that they were bidding on 16 vehicles with the amended specifications. It is the Public Works Committee's recommendation that Finance approve Public Works to bring forward a resolution for the purchase of 13 of these vehicles. And then the Water and Sewer Department as a separate corporation will bring forward a resolution for the purchase of the other 3 through their committee.
Okay, so if I understand this right, Mr. Chair, so they combined it and went bulk, because we did talk about 3 before, and I think it was decided to go to retender because there were some issues with the last 3, so I guess they were ordering 1 truck and then they needed 2 more and they were trying to use the same vendor, so anyway, we said reorder them all. Now what I'm trying to figure out is, does Fleet look after all the vehicles or does Fleet just look after city government? Because this all went out in 1 tender, correct? 16 vehicles. So I'm wondering why we're talking about 13 today and then we gotta talk about another 3 when Fleet actually looked after this.
Separate corporations.
So what?
Well-
Fleet looked after all 16. So it wasn't 2 separate bids that went out. It's 1 bid.
If I may, Chair and Committee, Finance looked after this, and as a corporation, umbrella corporation, we saw the opportunity for our combined corporations, I don't know how to perfectly explain it,
It's the
but
city of Charlottetown.
yeah, we saw an opportunity for multiple departments to combine in a
Right.
single tender.
Right, yeah.
And it's just the fact that the capital budget for the Parks and Recreation and Public Works and Fire, small fleet, is administered by the Public Works Department and therefore would come through their committee. And the capital budget for the purchase of fleet in the Water and Sewer Utility Department is under their capital budget and would come forward under their committee.
So I wonder why it's not all under Fleet for purchasing vehicles.
You get 2
I
corporations.
thought it was,
You get
But
2
yeah, but-
corporate books.
but the budgets are combined.
Well, no, they're only combined for the consolidated statement.
Well,
That's it. Right?
So why can't they be combined when you're buying vehicles? At the end of the day, it's the city of Charlottetown buying vehicles.
No, I
Anyway,
no, I certainly agree with your point, Councillor Bernard. It's anyway, it's one of these anyway, one of these management things, and you know, our I guess departments talking with one another. Anyway,
No, Mr. Chair, there are 2 incorporated bodies.
well, I recognize
They
that,
have
Mayor
to go
Brown.
through corporate services,
Yeah.
so.
In one city.
Yeah, but 1 city, but 2 corporate bodies, right?
yeah, but we do with paving for water and
Well,
utility. So
we
that means,
only,
you know,
only took over paving
So
just recently.
it doesn't matter. I mean,
Remember that,
do we
Paul?
share, do we share equipment or do we buy all the same equipment for 2 different, you know?
So let's come back to the matter at hand here, and the staff recommendation and where we go with this?
I'm okay with staff recommendation.
I'm not. So this is what I explained at the last meeting, which was Public Works, right, Paul, you were there, is that we went out to tender, and the tender, okay, sent out 2 addendums. If you look at the tender, if you don't acknowledge the addendums, that's the fault of, that's in the, that liability falls on the vendor, not the buyer. I gave examples where in the past, our company has submitted bids to the province. We didn't know about we didn't acknowledge the addendums. And when we won the tender, we had to absorb any additional costs that were in the addendums because we didn't pay attention to them. So that's on the buyer or on the vendor to take that, I'm not gonna say proactive move, but that's the responsibility of the vendor. So we disqualified 2 of them, 2 of the vendors, Fairall Ford and Reliable Motors. And as Councillor Bernard said, where this came from was from water and wastewater. They came in with one price. The lowest price was Fairall Ford at $55,000. I still have the document on my Surface. And this smelled similar to what happened at J. Frank McCauley Park, where we took one tender and we're just gonna go with the contractor that was doing the work. So we decided to go back to tender for 3, not 1. And then that was the tender that was initially sent out. So 3 vendors were looking at 3 trucks only. And an addendum went out to change the date. Okay, must be something wrong. Can't get vendors to submit prices. Another addendum came out to say, instead of 3, it's now 16. So if the vendor didn't catch that, that's not the fault of the buyer. That liability or that not lack of acknowledgement falls on the vendor. And for Merck's, because we use Merck's, which is another platform, when the addendums are sent out, Merck's doesn't publish the addendums. It's up to the vendor to find out if there are addendums. So again, I know Councillor Bernard is saying, let's go with them. I'm just finding that, again, we have to get this process in order. And I'd like to know what prices did come from Reliable and Fairall Ford. We only got 1 from Summerside Chrysler.
Yeah, and if I can jump in, I think, and part of the problem is, of course, we keep jumping back and going to more tenants. You know, use Park Street or J. Frank McCauley. We could have continued on that. That was proven through our legal. We could have continued, no problem. This one here, we could have, we didn't. So we went. It seems to me like it's a smart idea to do bulk. If you got 16 trucks you want to buy, do them all together, get your best price. It looks to me from what I'm reading here that two of the firms, their bids were non-compliant.
They didn't acknowledge the addendum. Correct, Paul? They didn't check off the box that we have acknowledged the addendum. But again,
Well, I think my understanding is the prices that they gave, yeah, they may not have recognized that how many trucks we're looking for or what we're looking for within the criteria for the trucks, which is usually what someone, when they're putting a price in, would look at to make sure they get the right price. I'm just going by staff saying that this is non-compliant, so the rules weren't followed. So if there's 2 non-compliant, there's only 1 there. And that's the one we've been taking. I mean, ever since we got rid of Enterprise Fleet, we've been going with Summerside Chrysler. The whole idea of getting rid of Enterprise Fleet was because we wanted to be local. We haven't been local since, and we weren't local before. But anyway, not to open another can of worms. Legally, and I look at legally, like if finance, this is why it comes here, to make sure these were done properly. So from the staff here, was this done properly?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, everything was done according to, to the procurement guidelines. It's unfortunate, so when the tenders were submitted by the 2 that were deemed to be non-compliant, the bid sheet gets them to specify the quantity of trucks and the price. So the 2 that were non-compliant quoted on 3 trucks at X dollars, and the the tender document with the addendum called for 16. So they quoted on a fraction of what was required, so that's why they were deemed as non-compliant, that's my understanding.
So, Mr. Chair, you saw the meeting, Public Works Committee meeting. I believe Mr. McCune told us that they were disqualified because they did not acknowledge the two addendums. But if you go to our tender,
So doesn't that not disqualify, does that,
in our tender, any addenda will be posted on the City of Charlottetown website. Bidders are responsible. Bidders are responsible for checking the website for submission, quote, tender notices. So if
if they
they're not,
don't,
if they don't, they take the loss. So if they went in at $55,000 for 16 trucks, either they go with that or they go, we're not taking that. That's, I asked the question, right?
Yeah, and that is.
That was the reason.
Through the chair to your worship, and that is why they were, the staff recommendation was that they were disqualified because had they just put a price in, but they specified 3 trucks
Yeah.
at this amount, so clearly they didn't acknowledge the addendum in what they had submitted.
Yeah.
So that's why they were deemed to be non-compliant.
But they take the loss, cause that happened to us with provincial tenders. We didn't look at the addendum, and I'll give you a case in point. They changed what plates were going between the 2 high spans, which cost us an additional 10,000. They said, that was the addendum, too bad. So if you didn't notice or you didn't read it, that's not our fault. We could have said, we're not doing it, but we took on the tenders.
Mr. Chair, just to speak to that, I totally appreciate what His Worship is saying with respect to process and what they are bound to as bidders. I just don't think it's an act in good faith with our local suppliers if we jam them up and they weren't, because they weren't doing their due diligence in looking for addendums. It sets a pretty dangerous
That's right.
precedent for us going forward, I guess is all I'm suggesting.
It's always been there.
Yeah, but there's
That
another
it's their responsibility to go back and look at addendums, but they didn't, and they quoted on 3 vehicles. So if we jam them up by demanding that they supply us with 16, then it's gonna set the precedent for how we move forward with bids coming in that would normally be considered incomplete or
Well, there's no
disqualified or whatever language we're using.
CAO, so
Yeah.
the precedent's already there. Whether if you don't acknowledge those addendums, that's the fault. That's a fault not on the city or the buyer, on the vendor. They take the liability.
so
But
if
I
they
think it-
don't acknowledge it, then they're non-compliant, so you award the tender.
But it doesn't require them to acknowledge, it just says bidders are responsible for checking the website, doesn't matter, doesn't say that the vendor has to get back to the City of Charlottetown to say, oh no, we've acknowledged the addendums, you don't have to do that.
I think you're playing on words.
Oh, that's not plain in words, we've experienced it.
No, but I think that there's a precedent set in other tenders where if they haven't followed the process, they haven't followed the addendums, they've been non-compliant. And all of a sudden, in this case, we can't just change it. I don't know how Summerside read the addendums, 2 others didn't. So I don't know how you say, well, let's go with the others, even though Summerside read it. I mean, to me, it'd be a legal situation if you don't give this to Summerside right now. So
Well,
I move to move this
We've already
on.
disqualified them. I'll second the resolution, but I'm not voting for it. I'm against. I'm just saying, we've already acknowledged that 2 were disqualified. We went through the Standing Committee for Public Works and this. But could I just ask on this resolution, is the resolution on the floor? I'll second this resolution.
Okay.
But could I just ask, under finance audit, enterprise fleet management, so we're still leasing vehicles and we're buying vehicles through our local vendors? So we still leasing vehicles for,
From my
City.
understanding is that there was a bit of a hangover obligation to Enterprise because of the contract that we backed out of.
okay, and just again on this question, when it says Public Works fleet, we're looking at $5,335,000 under capital budget. Can we get so here's 13, 16 going out. Can we get in just an email follow-up, how many vehicles we will be buying this year? Under small fleet, large fleet, fire small fleet, parks and recreation, small fleet, police. Is it possible to get that, Paul, or?
Chair committee, I think that's in the budget details that we have on our website.
And it's not just all vehicles, it can be trailers.
It's listed here, but not the numbers of
But
vehicles.
in the budget document that we circulated yesterday, I was requested for information on details. I was
And it's
delayed
in-
in getting it, delaying, but
Is it
I
in
did
the,
get, and then my understanding it was gonna be there, but
I'll look through.
if not, we'll circulate it.
okay, I'll look through, sorry,
No,
thank you. Okay, thank you. Question, questions called.
Questions called? All those in favor?
moving on, yep, I am.
Against.
All in favor?
Okay.
I think, I wanna just hold on, I think Councillor, the Deputy Mayor Yankoff was going to try to cast her vote.
So then that, okay, so that, walk that back then?
You don't have to vote. Vote for the tie yet. Johnny,
Like voting.
I know you do. Yes. You're Councilor Bernard.
It's really slow going to work.
Technology is not always our friend.
So is Alana able to hear?
There's trouble with me.
I don't know.
She's hearing us on
Valley.
YouTube.
Silicon Valley.
She's listening on
It's following
YouTube.
on YouTube,
So what,
there'll be a bit of a delay. It's set to.
Must be data problems over there and taking a while.
And she's gonna defer her vote because she can't hear completely, so.
Anyways,
she doesn't understand, so we'll move it.
carry the
Okay.
vote, carry the vote.
Let's move it on.
Okay, does that conclude 6B? I think it does.
Yeah.
Okay, 6C, Public Works, 2025 Contracted Sidewalk Program. Paul Johnson, Acting Manager of Public Works.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. When the Public Works Committee had a resolution on the floor of regular council for awarding our 2025-26 sidewalk design, there's, the funding had been approved post-issuance of that design tender. And with carryover in the capital budget of projects, there wasn't going to be enough work to do everything that we were awarding design for. There seemed to be a consensus of council that the budget, if it could be increased to get all of the design work done this year, most members of council seem to be in support of that. The Public Works Committee is saying that if there is an effective increase to the sidewalk budget, we certainly will strive to get all that work done this year. As a suggestion, we're saying that maybe the Canada Community Building Fund revenue, so-called revenue to the city, has not yet been allocated. If that is the case, and it was, and doesn't necessarily have to be directly to sidewalks. In the past, some of that has come to street resurfacing. And if that budget stays the same, then that would allow sidewalks to be boosted. So if even indirectly through the assignment of Canada Capital Building Fund, the sidewalk budget was increased, Public Works would do the work. If council wanted to increase our capital spending or move money around, whatever, Public Works would get that side work done fully. And also in the committee discussion, it was indicated that maybe 1.5 million so-called extra to sidewalks was less than the full capital Canada Community Building Fund. If there was anything else, it was noted that there was some storm projects that had been designed in the past that were never constructed, that the committee would also want to or look to undertake this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Bernard?
Thank you. So, Paul, my recollection was during the budget, excuse me, sidewalks was $3 million. 1.5, I think of that, 1.3 and 1.5 was already committed, which dropped you down to approximately 1.5 for sidewalks for this year. That's where your concern was.
Correct.
So there's still 1.7 of Canadian Community Fund, Building Fund. And you're looking for 1.5 it, or you wanna take the 1.7?
Changing numbers, getting closer to year end, we're thinking that an additional 1.5 million would probably allow us to construct all of the design work. We don't have this year's construction prices yet, but we're thinking it would allow us to construct all of the design work that we're undertaking this year.
So the 1.5 million, you can put that into your asphalt and take 1.5 of city capital dollars and put it in the sidewalk.
Correct.
I would, it's a no-brainer. I would move it.
Seconded, so again, can we speak to the resolution, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, your worship.
So why are we concerned about where does it come from, the Canada Community Building Fund, or the funding comes from our own revenue? Like, a debt is a debt, how you pay that debt, correct? Doesn't matter where the pocket of money comes from. If we follow the plan that our former Parks and Public Works manager put out, it was a 5-year plan. This is this year 2 or year 3? That we're on.
Here,
I think this would
Year
be
2 of a previous 5-year
Year two,
sidewalk
Yeah,
plan.
so let's just keep on the plan. You know, where the money comes from, we'll work that out. It's just, I don't wanna be switching money around from paving, and Dan may have more to offer, but we got money in paving, we just have to find how to.
No, if I can interrupt, I think the problem.
I just wanted, let me just finish, so
Okay.
I'm supporting it because you know what? It was in the 5-year plan. I know the councillor from Ward 10 has been trying to get these projects done, but it's in there, let's get it done. I know there was a request, as you know, so did the manager, to switch Talkman to another roadway. Well, that means we have to take the whole 5-year plan and put it back on the table for council to discuss it, so.
no, leave it.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, what? Yes, it's on the, is Stockman Drive on this?
Yeah.
Stockman Drive was in the
Design phase.
design awarded already by council.
Yeah, and the councillor from the area wishes to change that, you
Yeah, but
can't
we're not
change
talking,
that.
we're not talking about that here, though. We're talking about there's not enough money in the budget to do what's been on the schedule to do this year.
I know that.
So that, all we're saying is that the 1.5 million of
Right,
the gas tax.
right.
And the gas tax has certain criteria that can be used. So if
It doesn't matter where it comes from, councillor, as long as we pay the debt. That's all I'm saying.
No, what I'm saying, Phil.
Okay, excuse me.
Just one sec, just one sec. If it can't go into sidewalks, if that's not one of the criteria that it allows under the gas tax fund,
Right.
there's certain pillars that you're allowed to spend the money on.
I know.
If sidewalks is not one, then I'm saying you can put it into asphalt, because asphalt does qualify. The 1.5 million in asphalt, you have that city capital, you can move that back into the sidewalks. He may not be able to just put it into sidewalks and go build sidewalks. If it doesn't qualify under the gas tax. That's all we're saying. The work will still get done. But if we say today, put it in the sidewalks, then he goes to apply under the CCBF and they're saying, well, that doesn't qualify.
Okay, excuse me,
Probably
one-
But our whole budget for capital, the money that comes from the Canada Community Building Fund goes to all the projects and they decide which one applies. Is it a resurfacing, is it stormwater management? That's up to the manager to say, here's where it goes. If we don't have enough to cover everything that is enveloped in that Canada Community Building Fund, then we have to take from our revenue or from
Excuse me.
financing.
Dan, CFO? Dan
Thank
James.
you. Just to clarify, Chair, if we need to spend another $1.5 million on sidewalks, then that's great. We will have to revise the capital budget because the capital budget authorizes the spending part. So that's the expenditure. Whether we fund that through, to his worship's point, through CCBF or we go out and borrow money for it is really immaterial. What we need to do is, A, decide that we wanna spend another 1.5 this year on sidewalks beyond what we talked about in budget. And also to increase the capital budget to allow that spending. So that authorizes staff then to go out and hire the contractors.
I don't understand when you say authorize an increase in capital spending, when we're not changing that. The 9.6 million in the capital was part of that funding, so it's already there. If that's the 63.3 million you were saying is we approve in capital. We approved 60.7, but the partner funding brought that up. So it's already included in the budget. So if I hear it right, if we're saying go ahead and give him another 1.5 million of the gas tax, that's already there, so let him put it in that
Yeah.
section.
So the gas tax is a revenue side, so
Yep.
what the capital budget does is approve what we're going to spend. So it's what's going out the door in terms of cash. So we do have to increase the capital budget to reflect that extra 1.5, if that's what council decides to do, yeah.
And that's what we're recommending. That's the recommendation on the floor, is to increase the capital budget that should reflect finishing up the year 2 or year 3 of the 5-year sidewalk plan.
Total cost.
And we'll have no
The total
problem,
cost.
Total cost.
yeah, we'll have no problem spending the 3.7 million in CCBF
No,
this year.
I'm just confused on when we go to council, say we wanna increase the capital budget. And that's where I'm missing it, where are we increasing it? Cause that gas tax is already in the budget.
Yeah, well, the gas tax actually isn't in the capital budget because it's not an expenditure, it's revenue coming into the city, so.
9.6 partner funding?
No, that's only ICIP, so that's stuff that's specifically attached to a project. So the bus subsidies, that was specifically attached to that project. The CCBF is a revenue source that we bring in, we expect to recover that, and that's in our plan, but it's not specifically attached to a project, so the capital budget is authorizing the spending part. And then the CCBF, where we allocate that revenue to projects it's really kind of window dressing, because we know we have way more spending than we have CCBF to spend it on.
So just so I'm clear, so are we saying that we're recommending to council that we spend 1.5 million of our CCBF fund goes to public works? Is that what we're saying?
No, I think we're just recommending that we spend another 1.5 million on sidewalks,
Period.
period.
Well, then that makes council look like we're borrowing more capital dollars, which we're not.
We are.
We're not. Because that money's not allocated on the gas tax. That is giving to us free. It doesn't cost the city anything, so we're not borrowing any more money. What we're asking council permission for is, can we use the CCBF funding for sidewalks?
But on that point, you were saying, Councilor Bird, about reallocating the street paving piece, 1.5 million less.
No, it stays the same. It's 5.1 million for street resurfacing, which stays the same. All I'm saying there is, of the 5.1 million, there's 2 million of that now that's CCBF funding, or your gas tax funding. So there's still 3.1 of city borrowed capital dollars. So under the CCBF funding, although we've done sidewalks before, there's some concern about it's not clearly defined as new sidewalk construction. So if you just give Paul Johnson, if you just give the manager another 1.5 million in public works and say we want to pump up the sidewalks, another 1.5 million, then he can. I don't see where we're borrowing any more money. We get the gas tax every year. We're not borrowing more money, it's given to us to be able to do projects like this.
Could I just
So I
ask?
can see getting council to approve using that money towards public works project, in this case sidewalks.
Can I just get a clarification? So the CCBF is federal transfer money, and it's used for capital, not operational, correct?
There's a couple minor exceptions to that, but for the most
What
part.
would be some of the, for operational, such as what?
If we want to do a municipal growth study
Oh.
to look at annexing up,
Or like we did with the comprehensive review of
Yes.
our official plan?
Yeah.
We used it for operational.
Yeah.
But the lion's
For the
share,
most part of it
the lion's
is
share is
capital
with
infrastructure.
capital.
That's right, yeah.
So that's, as Mr. Jenkins said, that's a revenue source that goes into the bank to say, cover up your expenditures. So if our expenditures going from 60 million to 61.5 million, that's what we're going with. And I'm supporting it, because let's stick with the plan that we started out with, which is a 5-year plan on reconstructing or constructing new sidewalks. And does it cover active transportation pathways, multi-use paved pathways, or just concrete sidewalks? Concrete sidewalks.
Chair to Mayor Brown, you're asking about the Canada Community
No,
Building
the
Fund?
sidewalks,
Sidewalks,
it's
I'm
just
sorry.
sidewalks.
Sidewalks is a combination of concrete and pavement,
Okay.
pedestrian and active transport pathways.
And it has been used for that before.
Correct, that's all, I just wanted for clarification. So Councillor Bernard, I'm supporting,
I'm
I'm supporting,
I'm
and
not
I think
arguing.
council will.
No, I think they will too. The only thing I'm confused about is it's in our budget as revenue, so it's already in the budget. So it hasn't been allocated to what projects yet. 2 million of it has. But it sounds to me like we say we're going to up our capital budget. We're gonna up another 1.5 million. Sounds like we're gonna borrow another 1.5 million.
Yeah.
We're not.
Well, if you're gonna spend an additional 1.5 million, you have to get it from somewhere, you can't just take it from the CCBF bank.
If I gave you $20 today to go get a coffee, is that costing you another $20?
You can't use that analogy.
Why not? The same thing. They're giving us $3.7 million. They're putting it in the bank. So when you go spend on something, you're not going to capital and borrow more money. You have it there.
That 3.7, if I can just say, if I go to the document, February 25th, $60 million, 722,000, right? Capital budget, and then add on our partner funding. So if we're paying down the bill, if we're getting $3.5 million from the CCBF, doesn't matter if that's 60 million or 65, does it? Doesn't matter. It's an expenditure.
Yeah, but we haven't spent it yet. That's the problem. We're
We will
asking,
be.
we're asking to spend 1.5 million towards sidewalks.
And that's exactly it, we're
Yeah.
just looking for the authorization to
We're
spend.
just looking for
And when
authorization. We're not
when we-
borrowing more money.
And let's add it to the budget.
Right on.
So we're,
And we-
we're effectively amending capital budget that we just passed.
That happens.
We're asking council to give permission, 1.5 million to put in the public works budget for sidewalks. That's what we're asking.
And the budget is it's a plan, right? It's a working document. Circumstances change, we'll have situations that come up, and as we manage projects more closely and know what the status is, we may find mid-year that looks like we can't do a turf field, get it built by the end of the season, so we're
And which,
look at something else.
and which keeps us on track with this 5-year sidewalk plan that
That's right. That's what I'm
to
looking
which the sidewalk plan, as acting manager has stated a number of times, listen to that committee meeting and past committee meetings, that the whole sidewalk development, continuation going forward needs a careful look in terms of where sidewalks and pathways go, and we've got how many kilometers of roads in the city, but they all can't have sidewalks, and they have to be there's gotta be there's gotta be a process for that, and Paul, the acting manager's done a good job of pointing that out, and hopefully that carries over to the new manager that's coming in, and
And Paul has done a good job, and I guess the only thing I'll add now, things are brought up, I mean, as the councillor from my ward, we had a sidewalk approved for West Colm. It was approved last year, and it's gonna happen in 2 phases. So am I disappointed that this year, all of a sudden, the second phase is not happening? Or we're gonna do some other sidewalks instead? Yeah. And that's why this will cure the problem, keep it on schedule, keep everybody on schedule,
We're doing.
so.
And I fully agree. And you know what? Look at some of the areas in our capital budget. We got $5.5 million dedicated to Queen Street and Pownell Parkade. If something happens with any of these parkades, it could be higher or it could be lower. So it's a living document, sir.
is that to that acting manager, Paul, is Royalty Road on 26 scheduled, do you know?
If you'll give me a couple of seconds, Chair, I'll tell you on the past document where we had that.
Where I saw it, it was, can't pull it up here quickly, but I
No, I'm getting it
shared that with you.
in front of me. In the fall 2023, we had a plan that had, that will regenerate for me, oops, no. That had Royalty Road from Upton Road to Nanock in 2026.
Okay, correct.
So it's on schedule.
Let the record to reflect that, and no, that's great, thank you. And that was, I know some of the discussion and was part of that, you know, could there be modification made on sidewalks within what was scheduled or whatever for this year, so no, that's great, thank you. Does that conclude discussion on that the sidewalk? Thank you, making progress. Update 6D, report from finance, update the committee on matters of interest. Lane Pino, manager of finance.
Thank you, Chair. Just some general updates there. This is the monthly report that we provide with a summary of all the tenders that are currently in movement. Of course, a lot of them resulting from our budget approval in February of this year. There's currently 14 RFPs there in motion, as you can see, at various stages, and we've addressed a few of them here today. And we also have the year-to-date financial report as well. And I just want to highlight that again, as I do every month with respect to the financial report, we're getting close to year end. There's a lot of year end adjustments that will need to be done as part of our normal year end process. And that this is a point in time expenditure report, and we'll continue to firm up the numbers as we compile our year end.
Thank you, Lane. Any questions, comments to Lane or Dan or anyone else?
And can we turn to digital page 17? So this is your report up until the end of February.
11 months.
Yes.
I think one thing I wanna ask this committee to look at is keep an eye on fiscal services. I know that both you and you and Dan produced a spreadsheet that showed our capital assets up to a point, a date stamp time for a period of operation. But just on the amortization and on the depreciation, are those numbers fixed? Like, are these numbers determined by what you can amortize a piece of equipment, for example? Is that in the CPA guide? Is that in your guide to say, here's where you're at this point in time? So this piece of equipment, you have to amortize it or depreciate it at 25, 40%? Is that, or does that come from just a guide or I'm not gonna say a sort of looking into the magic ball, but how do we determine that?
Well, there's public sector accounting guidelines
Yeah.
in terms of how we
Guidelines.
account for it. But we also have a tangible capital asset policy
Right.
approved by the city that identifies the different asset classes and also the amortization rates.
Right,
And
In
those-
percentages?
In percentages, and those get defined in the financial statements and the disclosure notes.
right. So, but there's no catalog that a HVAC has a lifespan of 20 years. And that's how you depreciate it, or,
So when we add those to our capital expenditures, we'll assign an asset class to it,
reassign.
which is small equipment, large
Right.
equipment. I mean, also subject to review by our auditors, but we'll assign an asset class to that. And that defines the rate of depreciation that's gonna be applied to that asset.
Right. So over the years, I've asked for the senior management letter, and I've looked over these past letters, right back to 219. There was never any sort of red lights or flashing lights or bells were ringing off the wall or off, just sounding the alarm. So I just find that, you know, we focused on it in the last couple of years, which is great, we're paying down on our interest. We're paying, you know, we're taking into consideration the depreciation. But like what people don't realize, there's no dollar value to depreciation, it's a debt note. Right, there's, like, as I've told you before, with our private company, you pay corporate taxes. Depreciation means an expense, so you deduct that from your revenue side. But we can't do that, so I'm just trying to find out, do we have to, again, the depreciation, the longer you run it out, the asset stays at a certain value. That's what you wanna keep, right? That asset at a certain value, because if the value goes down to nothing, then that sort of adds issue to your financial statements, correct? Not your monthly statements, but the books itself, on the revenue side, on the expenditure side. So I just wanna keep an eye on that this year, because I think that, you know, we've done a good job paying down the debt. It's just that it was really a hard process this past 4 or 5 months trying to, you know, deal with this deficit when we had a surplus and we had, you know, increased revenue from our property taxes. I just, again, just wanna put that up as something that we keep an eye on.
Yeah, CFO Dan?
Yeah, thanks, through the chair to your worship. Yeah, we're in agreement with you, your worship. We actually did go back and have a look at some of the rates for some of our asset classes. In terms of seeing if there was, you know, maybe we're so the depreciation is really an attempt to match the cost of an asset over its useful life. So rather than expensing a $2 million fire truck this year, we would take it and we'd spread it over 15 years or 20 years, the useful life. So each year we recognize a little bit in our operating budget. So that's really what depreciation is.
Right.
But we went back and looked at some of the rates that were assigned to our different asset classes. And I think probably somebody went through this process in some prior years, because our depreciation, I was trying to pull up the financial statements here, but I believe the depreciation rate that's on our fire trucks is
20 years.
10% or something, and maybe even lower. 4% sticking in my mind, but I could be wrong on that, so don't hold me to it. But it's very, very aggressive or very conservative in terms of what would be left at the end of 15 years on a fire truck.
Yeah, no,
It's on a declining balance, right?
that's in the statements.
What's fire truck, Sterling?
4%.
4%. So 4%, that would take more than 30 years to depreciate that fire truck fully. Most rolling stock, most motor vehicles are depreciated no lower than 20%, most of them at 30% declining balance. So those depreciation rates, and it goes across the asset classes that we looked at, really, we probably don't have any room to reduce that. In fact, to be truthful, I think we're probably understating what the real depreciation fact.
But again, if I go back to the management letters, our auditors really didn't see that as an issue, because the asset, right, is still holding some value.
Yeah.
Which on the books looks better than if the asset depreciated instead of 10 years or 20 years, 10 years. I only say that because in a company, in a private company, if your assets are depleted to a point because of depreciation, the value of your company goes down, correct? So the value of our city corporation on the assets that we have, if we don't depreciate everything too quickly, at least we have value in the state of our books, in the asset.
And I probably didn't state it very clearly, but I think what I was trying to say is that we aren't depreciating our assets very quickly.
We are or not?
We are not.
No,
We're
they're not. That's what you were saying, they're not.
really stretching them out on the
I
financial
know.
statement,
So would there be an average rate if you were to kind of pick one or guess approximately, like you're talking 3 and 5 and 10 and 12?
Well, in the fire truck example, 4% a year would be, I think an industry comparison, your cranes would probably be depreciated at 30%. For capital cost allowance,
Right.
Yeah, so we're assuming that asset's gonna last a lot longer than Brown's cranes.
Because when you look at the use, they're two different uses, right? But again, when you raise that depreciation value, that is debt note on our books. that we have to deal with. So,
Okay, are we, good, Scott, are we good on,
Looks good.
Lane's,
I just have one question.
Councillor Bernard?
I'm just wondering if Lane or Dan could, I wouldn't mind seeing a list of all the positions in all the departments that are vacant and how long they've been vacant. I understand there's some vacant positions that have been on the books for a few years. But that money's still in under those positions. So it may be something, you know, you're talking about all different departments, it may be something that kind of get missed. It'd be nice to just have a look at what positions may not be filled and how long they've been vacant. Thank you.
Thank you, okay, six E on our agenda, report, update to, committee on grants in process for the 25-26 year. Lane Pino and Dan Jenkins, which one wants to start? I guess Lane?
I'll start and Dan can jump in. So this is to provide an update in terms of where we are. So if we go back to, there was discussion at the council level in terms of grants and the desire for some council members for finance to go back and review our current grant expenditure list and come back with further discussion on what the council and cities intent would be in terms of grant expenditures going forward, in terms of the scope of funding supports that are provided in there.
Excuse me, Lane, are you talking the whole space, or are we just talking community grants?
I'm talking grants overall.
Okay, thank you.
So attached to the report is what was included in the budget materials for budget deliberations provided by council last week or a couple weeks ago. So to provide an update where we are, as you recall, the normal course for community grants is that we take grant applications that were provided in the fall and put them through an evaluation matrix in terms of identifying financial need and identifying what the funding would be applied towards in terms of supporting the strategic alignment with the city's strategic plan. So we're in the process of going through that right now, and it's our intent to complete that process into next week and provide an overall financial summary to our department, our city leadership in terms of the grants that we currently have on the books right now, and identify a path forward for those. And then to incorporate any feedback from the department or the city leadership and come back to the finance committee again with some recommendations in terms of some potential adjustments that we could do to the grant expenditure, as well as recommendations tied to the community grant applications, and then ultimately to bring that report and feedback to council at the special meeting scheduled for April 22nd.
Lane, can I just, through you, Chair, can I just get a clarification on, like in the recommendations, it says to look at a grant evaluation matrix. When we're using that matrix, are we using it for the big bucket, or are we just using that matrix for the community grants?
Just the community grants.
I have,
Go ahead, Councilor Bernard.
I'm just wondering, and I'm trying to go back to the conversation we had. I know community grants was the bulk of it, and everybody wanted to kind of look at the community grants. When I'm looking at this, fees and membership grants, Charlottetown East Link Center, or event hosting grants, they were already part of our budget, were they not? So they've already been approved, so the ones that haven't been approved, unless I'm wrong, the ones that haven't been approved is just the community grants, is that correct?
So I think after discussion through the chair to Councillor Bernard, was that there was a wish from council to have a more holistic look at all of the grants that we provide before we approve anything that's not in a contract or an agreement. So right now, we have an agreement with the airport authority to provide tax in lieu grant. We have an agreement with Eastlink and Kerry to provide operating grants. There's a few others, but the majority of the other ones we're not committed contractually to those.
No, but I'm wondering if it makes more sense, so since the budget's passed, if some of these are already in the budget. Like to me, it would make sense before you do the next budget, you start looking at a lot of these. Not after it's already been approved, but you look at, so I think for me, it makes sense to look at the community grants. Explain them, because I understand there's 478,000 asked and there's 400,000 budgeted, so there's gonna have to be some conversation there. The ones that are already approved, your fees, memberships, arts and culture, event hosting. To me, you start looking at that in January, say, here's what it was last year, do we even want to go down this road, or where's council on this, and start reviewing at that point. Does that make sense? Because if these are already approved, we're just gonna start.
Can I just speak to that?
CAO.
Because I think part of the conversation we had as a group this morning is the staff bringing something to this table, is that the sooner we look at the big picture of all the grants, if we are making any substantive changes to how we give any funds to external groups at all, the more notice that we can give them, the better. So although, to your point, there's money in our budget to address a lot of the things that we've been doing over the years, the sooner we pivot, if we're going to pivot, the sooner we give notice that we're doing that, the better. So to leave it till like 3/4 of the way through our fiscal to tell people that, in a couple months, things could be very different for your organization, I don't think we wanna do that. If we are going to change how we treat the grants in general, I think we should get out of the gate on this as quick as possible. If there is going to be any substantive changes.
Yeah, so by that, are you suggesting? Like if we do it now, we're not giving us notice. If we do substantial changes, I mean, but I guess it may be the same thing as I'm saying, is that what's approved already is approved for 25. So you wanna start looking at them for 26 budget year.
Exactly, that's part of the
that's what I'm saying
conversation,
too,
because
yeah.
we don't want to preempt what you decide at the end of the
Right,
day.
that's what I'm saying, it's gonna cause arguments, I think that's the best way to go about it.
Well, I mean, and that's part of the decision you have to make as an elected body, is that if we have X amount of money in the pot now, then we're able to do, as per this matrix, we're able to do all of these things, then we're not pulling the rug out from anyone in this fiscal, but we may be putting some groups on notice that things might be different in the next fiscal. I think that's part of the
And I think
conversation, Dan.
that's where I kind of was thinking where it was coming from too, they want to look at all, like, there's a lot of grants in there, some councils don't even know about, probably.
That's the big
The
bucket.
CAO, you're referring to the community grants.
No, I'm referring to the big bucket
Okay.
Oh,
that has a lot of, like, millions of dollars in it.
yeah, 7 million.
So, but I think what she's suggesting is what we've passed already continues, we look forward for
For
26.
for 25, 26.
Yes, the sooner we do that, 26, 27.
26, 27, but we also are fine tuning.
Yeah.
We're fine tuning what we're doing this year.
Community grants, we're fine.
There could be some wiggle room there.
And just for clarification, in the budget document, we purposely removed any reference to any specific nonprofits or charities that previously had received grants. So there were only a handful of actual organizations that were identified in the budget document. It was really just the total amount for hosting grants and those types of things. If I may, Chair, Councillor Yankoff wanted me to just pass on some comments.
Yep.
She said, even though a lot of the grants have already been approved, I believe it is the will of council to have a holistic discussion on all grants, all money that city allocates outside of department city business. That's my input. Appreciate it if it could be reflected in the minutes.
And I think that's what
we're talking
we're talking about here right now, so
Yep.
we're all on the same page, I
Yep.
think. Mayor Brown?
Well, I go back to what I said during the council meeting on the 24th. Holistically, we can talk about them, but there are names to each of those applicants.
Are you talking community grants or the whole thing?
Senior Active Living Center. Boys and Girls Club. Like, you
What's
can't
your-
talk, you can't
Yeah.
talk, you can't talk about the grants without referring to the benefactor, right?
Yeah.
So, again, I'm trying to remember, John and Councillor Bernard, I don't recall having the discussion last year about the grants. I think, my understanding, Betty just put them in and that was it. John said he remembers the discussion, because I don't remember increasing some of these grants to what actually went out the door.
I think last year there was a discussion, but I think it was short. It was just basically, here's the grants and here's the money, and it matched up, so.
That's-
Was there any,
The community grants.
was there any more conversation?
That's, yeah, and I think,
Because the other grants were within the budget like they are this year. And we've already went through the other ones cutting, so we've cut 5% off most of them.
and the reason I say that, because some of the benefactors come up to me after they receive their notification to say, thank you very much. Like, that was their original ask. They, anytime you do an original ask, it doesn't get the 100%. So I think we open that door and everybody thinks, okay, well, we're gonna get the same this year, because we are getting calls. When's my check coming? But we do have a policy. We have a grant policy. Have we looked at that matrix? Because Betty did a revamped or refreshed with some amendments to the grant policy. So please just look at that to see what it does address in
So-
providing grants.
So if I understand this, and by the way, before I forget, there is some grants that are time sensitive, that are in embargo, that we would have to have an answer before April 22nd. So is there a way we can have this meeting sooner? Because April 7th was the date. Is there a way we could have it sooner? Preferably we'd have this settled by April 15th. Today's April
Are those,
2nd.
through the chair, Counselor, are those items you're talking about already in the budget?
Yep.
So if there's something that we're contractually obliged to already, I don't know if there'd be any way for council to say we're not doing that in this fiscal. I don't know.
Some of the events that, like the ones that are under embargo, we've already went through the process of making cuts, like that's what I was saying earlier, the cuts have been made that we could make. But if we go through this again and somebody says, well, I think you should cut another 100,000 off it, then
I don't think that's the exercise.
I don't either, but we need an answer before.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Give the answer.
I
Green
think-
light.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if
Money's
it's
already
green lighted,
approved.
I mean,
Yeah.
the council has to green
Yeah,
light it.
yeah. Well, council approved the
Council
budget.
did approve that.
We're just
But it's under grants,
Yeah.
we said we would look at grants.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we're just taking back that $400,000 section.
Well, that's what I asked earlier, and that's apparently not the case.
You're gonna take it all back?
I don't think I think we need to be careful about how we're presenting this. We're not taking anything back. The council asked staff to come back with a master plan, if you will, on how we proceed with our grants going forward.
Right.
So we, in the interest of the budget exercise, we kept everything in. Everything's in there.
Yeah.
But now we need to decide going forward what kind of lens we're going to apply on grants.
So we use the grant policy.
Using the grant policy is one of the tools, but there may be some other tools that we're using with respect to major events that may present themselves in the course of a year or whatever. I don't know
So
what
can we
that
say,
looks
can we
like.
say this, because we talked earlier about looking at all the grants for 26, 27 years, so I guess though what's coming to mind now is the community grants is the conversation for what dollars goes into each one. The other grants is conversation for 26, 27, is just, do we wanna look at this in future years? So again, go back to Sue's case, where we have a long road to give them warning that you may not get that next year or it may change.
So you break it down.
Yeah, so really what council's gonna be making decisions on financially is the community grants.
Yeah.
And then we get an idea about the other grants and if you may wanna look at them for 26,
Is
27.
that your understanding of how we're doing this?
Make sense?
No,
I think the request was from council to have a look
at
holistically
all
at.
of the grants.
Yeah.
And
But the
to,
financial changes will be in the community grants because the other ones are already passed in the budget. So if you wanna make holistic changes, then that's a 26, 27 budget.
I still think we're talking about looking at the whole thing, but just in two parts.
Yeah, you can look at it that way.
Could I ask, Mr. Chair, so if I look at the spreadsheet that both Dan and Lane provided on March 24th, there's first it starts with finance agreements. Then it starts with finance agreements for affordable housing, finance community grants, finance fully funded intermediary grants, which is through the Boys and Girls Club, building safer communities, which is really an in and out, right? That's not money coming from us, but it's, and also inner city. There's also sustainability grants, that was a category. Then there's planning and heritage grants, economic, tourism and cultural development. Then there's also event hosting grants, fees and membership and grants.
So those ones you're listing now are in the budget and have been approved.
Yeah, no, these are all the arts and culture grants, and it goes down to Parks and Recreation, TAL grants. Well, TAL again is that in and out, right?
Yeah.
Same as the Canada Safer Communities. And then you have water and sewer. Those are the categories.
Yeah, so your worship, to that point, when our group comes back to finance committee and then into council, there'll be categories set up. There's a lot of them, to your point, that are in and outs.
Yeah,
So as long as there's money coming back in for them, we don't need to talk about those all day long.
No.
But it's the ones where it's been business as usual forever.
Yeah.
With no real lens applied, other than it just gets put in the budget every year and no one ever checks back in to see
Can we-
if it's needed anymore, if we just
It
need
used
to
to-
hit the
Can
reset.
they be
button, so to
identified
speak.
and
It used to always be that we went through all the community grants and see if, because there was always new asks or there was always some dropped off. So we always went through the community grants.
But there's also other grants in that 7 million.
Yeah.
That we need to take another second sober look at.
under planning, under economic development, under water and wastewater. Yeah, they're all right there.
Yeah,
So, to me, obviously that has to be done, and we just gotta, I would think, just gotta start at the top and go through each of the categories and.
Well, it'll be a long meeting.
Not if we bring it to you in the format where you can see the ones that are conversation pieces. There's some that are no-brainers.
Yeah, break
I
it
mean,
down.
if you've got an organization out there that's delivering an essential service on behalf of all the citizens for next to no cost to the city corporation, then that's a lens that you apply to that and go, okay, that's something that it makes no sense for us to try to do that ourselves,
Well, and
instead of providing support to another organization to do it.
and 3.5 million of that is contractual obligations, is it not?
Yeah, at least.
Tax in lieu of.
Yeah,
So
so
your
those
three-
are the things you just take right off the table.
Yeah, so those are all. And then a lot of these other ones, if they wanna look at it, like I say, other than the community grants, a lot of them are in the budget now. So I think you look at it for 25, 26, the community grants you look at now, but you can break it all down to the ones that are no-brainers, the ones that we can look at for 26, 27, the ones we look at for now.
We also have to look at need, because I don't know if we ever ask, and maybe Lane and Dan can confirm if we ever ask for anyone that's in that $7 million list, if we ever ask for financials,
Yeah, we do.
for all of them?
Well, we asked that a
Again,
few years ago.
Go through
Yeah.
the grant policy that
Nancy
we,
can
that we
kinda capture them.
renewed, renovated in the last 2
Yep.
years with Betty. That should be all there.
That's why we dropped the hockey associations, because they were showing were pretty
The
healthy,
who?
the hockey associations. And
CFO Dan?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor Bernard, I don't think there's any thought that we're gonna shake up the bag very much in terms of the grants, but I think like even some of the agreements are longer term agreements, but there's notice provisions in there, and if council determined that a particular grant in lieu of taxes wasn't really in the best interest of the city as compared to maybe another police officer or two, that would be something that council would want to have input on.
Yeah, I think when I look at the lieu in taxes, I think you're talking about the Confederation Center of the Arts, you're talking about the airport, you're talking about the hospital, you're talking about
Kerry.
things that. Yeah, like I don't think there's anything you can just drop. Say we're gonna start charging taxes.
Not dropping, but.
Well, that's the only,
And I guess
Givens.
my point is that although things are probably not gonna change very dramatically this year, it's like planting a tree, the best time to plant a tree is yesterday, right? So, or 20 years ago, so, I think the sooner we can provide the information to council to give them an overall good perspective in terms of what our contribution is going towards supporting and give council the opportunity to say, yeah, that makes good sense and we'll continue to do that, or maybe we pivot from, to use a small example, maybe we support tennis more than lacrosse.
Yeah, I just think, back to what Sue said earlier, I just think that, exactly what you said, we show everything, but if there's changes they want to make, that's 26, 27, except for the community grants. Because there's a commitment made, and right now, there's not enough timeline to give them a warning.
And if you look at what happened just during this budget process, because of Councillor Bernard, we went from 0.592 to 63.2 on the residential tax. Next year, that will go to 65 cents. So we're getting back to the 66 cents that was part of the amalgamation back in 95. So I think that discussion has to continue, that we have to go back to the table with the province, and that's, Summerside is very much engaged and want to follow up on it. So, look, we can find other sources of revenue. We just have to be more diligent how we look, search, and get that revenue into our coffers. Like, my concern is half, this federal election, this national election will determine where that's going for the future. And that's been very important to the city. As Sue knows also, that Rapid Housing Initiative, $5 million came to the city. What did we do? We coupled it with the province, which is over 36 in the first phase, and by the end of it, with 144 units, it will be a $66 million project. So I think we're going in the right direction. We'll have a good discussion on the grants.
No, I do too.
Can I just kind of summarize what I think we kind of, on this grant piece, globally, going to be maybe, staff will just re-summarize, there's some obvious ones there that probably really aren't going to change, but take staff's direction and with input, I guess, from the committee here as to the ones that we may want to kind of take a second look at, and why, and then, have some kind of lens or suggestion as to,
In my opinion,
for 26, 27?
my opinion, I think what I thought would happen is we're looking at all the grants, right? So then you would have people to speak on them. So the ones that are taxing low, you guys will probably speak on, it's taxing low, here's why we do it. And then if you get into the economic development ones or the Parks and Rec ones, then I assume the managers would speak on it. This is why we have it, this is what it's for, so everybody gets a good idea of what the grant's being used for, and if it makes sense or not.
And thank you for mentioning that, Councillor, because to you, Mr. Chair, part of the process, and Lane, I think, mentioned it in his opening remarks, is part of the exercise on the path to council is the department heads are all getting together before you meet again as a finance committee to put their fingerprints on the whole thing, so they can earmark any of those things that you've talked about, so that when you get into the council chamber with the final document coming from finance committee, the department heads will be on the rail in case council has any questions about
And I think that-
any of
that-
the given accounts.
And then nothing's missed.
Right.
So then council can decide if it makes sense or doesn't make sense, and that's,
But financially, in the budget, everything that's in the grants, agreements, is in budget 25, 26, correct? Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. And then on to final, well, not final, but 6F, report, economic development, Charlottetown Surf Incorporation Special Events Reserve Fund.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to that.
Lane's here too, isn't
It says he's the report
No.
writer, but,
I don't
he? He's
think
around
it's
here, walking the
yeah,
hallways.
Wayne's here.
Go ahead.
Here.
So we talked about this in economic development.
Wayne?
Wayne's in a DCI meeting,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I thought he was walking by there, but it was Kevin.
unless he's out, he was there
Luckily.
for 12:30.
Go ahead.
Anyway, this we talked about before, this is the surf setup. And it's
Oh,
going.
here he is.
It's moving to be incorporated. So we had some issues when we were talking about incorporating it. It's been agreed that those issues that we had where we would pick the chair and, the directors that would be appointed would still have voting privileges. So, now that we have that all as part of this package, we have no problem moving on to have it incorporated. Want to add anything I may have missed? I think that's the gist of it, it's pretty straightforward.
The only thing that I would say, Mr. Chair, through Councillor Bernard, is that we essentially have gone back to the status quo of what the city currently held in terms of our contribution and appointees to the SURF committee, and that was the concern of the finance committee and perhaps council at large. So we've gone back to SURF. They worked with their legal to return us back to what we wanted the complement to look like. So essentially that is 3 appointees from the city corporation. 2 of them are tied to staff positions internally, not to persons, but to staff positions. 1 is the 3rd appointment at large, but the individual must be from the tourism sector. And then 1 of those 3 individuals would also be appointed by the mayor and uplifted to council as the chair of the committee.
So it's a setup that basically we had before, we were talking about doing incorporated, and then when the incorporation came, it was gonna be ex officio as far as voting members, which we didn't agree with. And the board itself was gonna pick the chair, so we had problems with that, so it's back to what it was previous, but yet incorporated. Make sense? And this should, correct me if I'm wrong, this should alleviate some of the extra work that finance was doing, finance staff.
Yeah, cause that was a bit of a snafu when I was here last time around.
The CFO, Dan?
Just passing on Deputy Mayor Yankoff is in support of moving the SURF report through.
Okay, so I'll move ahead.
Moved by Councillor Bernard, seconded by Mayor Brown. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Okay,
You should stay for the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, 6F. Number 7, introduction to new business.
Motion adjourned.
Okay. Number 8,
Thanks, Wayne.
adjournment. Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Bernard. Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
You will.